This is the video for 11.3, and we are talking about dividing polynomials. So we are leaving chapter 8 just for this one lesson because in Algebra 1 it is very important that you not only learn how to multiply polynomials, but you have to learn how to divide them as well. So in example number 1, I have a trinomial and I am dividing that by a monomial. So there are multiple different ways to do this. The easiest way to divide a trinomial by a monomial is to just take each term of the trinomial separately and individually and divide each term by the monomial. So for example, I take 9x to the third and I divide it by 3x squared. Then I take negative 6x squared and I divide it by 3x squared. And finally, I take 15x and divide it by 3x squared. And this is what I get. So pause the video and make sure that you understand how I got this as my final answer. But let's look at this last term here because this is a little tricky. How did I get 5 over x as my final answer here for this last term? Well, first of all, 15 divided by 3 is 5, so that's why there's a 5 as a, that's why there's a 15 divided by 3 is 5, which is why the numerator is 5. But look at the variables. Remember what you are doing when you are dividing powers that have the same base. When you are dividing powers that have the same base, you are subtracting the exponents. So once I subtract the exponents, I get x to the negative 1, which is the same thing as saying 1 over x. And so that's why my variable x here is in the denominator. So again, pause the video and work this example problem out and make sure you understand how I got this answer. And then when you're ready, go ahead and hit pause and work out these two on your own example problems and divide these trinomials by a monomial. And here are the answers. Look at this term here. So 3 divided by 2 does not reduce, so you can just leave that as 3 over 2. And then what happens with the variables? You can think of it this way. I have one variable x at the top, and I have 2 at the bottom. So once I reduce, what am I left with? I'm left with one variable x at the bottom. Okay, example number 2. Now we're going to get into some long division. So I'm going to work this out for you so you can watch me do this. And this seems very complicated at first, but I promise you this is actually fairly simple. And once you get the hang of it, it's very easy because there are not a lot of tricks to this. It's not very tricky. It's pretty straightforward. This is long division, and the basic concept here when dividing polynomials using long division is actually the same basic concept you used when doing long division in elementary school. So I have a trinomial and I am dividing this by a binomial. So set it up like this, just like you used to set up long division in elementary school. And remember, be very careful. Both this right here and this must be in standard form. Write that down. That's very important for you to remember. Both the x plus 3 and this trinomial in here must be in standard form. Both the divisor and the dividend must be in standard form. So if they're not, you need to rewrite them so they're in standard form. Otherwise, this process will not work. Okay, so this is where I'm going to start. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start here with this x, and I'm going to look at the first term. And I'm going to say, what do I need to multiply x by in order to make it 3x squared? And the answer is 3x. Or you can think of it this way. What is 3x squared divided by x? And the answer is 3x. Okay, so now what do? I take 3x squared times x, which is, I take 3x times x, which is 3x squared. Then I have to take 3x times 3, which is 9x. And now I subtract them. 3x squared minus 3x squared is 0. Those will always cancel out because that's what you're trying to do. Now I'm going to take negative 4x minus 9x, which is negative 13x. Now what do? The same thing you used to do in elementary school when you did long division. Bring down the next term here. Okay, now I'm going to do the exact same thing. What do I need to multiply x by in order to make it negative 13x here? And the answer is negative 13. Or you can think of it this way. What is negative 13x divided by x? Negative 13. Because negative 13 times x is negative 13x. Negative 13 times 3 is negative 39. Now what am I going to do? I'm going to subtract. Those will cancel out. That's what I'm trying to do. And then I have to say, what is 13 minus negative 39? 52. And now I'm done because I can't make x 52 here. So that is actually going to be my remainder. This right here, once you can't make x into this number, you know you're done. You can't go any further. And so this is going to be the numerator of my remainder. So my answer is going to be 3x minus 13 plus 52 over x plus 3. That is my answer, and this 52 over x plus 3 is going to be my remainder. So rewind this, watch that again if needed, and go ahead and try this on your own problem. Okay, and I'm going to work it out for you. I'm taking 2x squared minus x minus 3. I'm making sure that's in standard form, which it is. And I'm dividing it by x plus 1. Again, I'm making sure that's in standard form, which it is. Okay, so how do I start? I have to say, well, what do I need to multiply x by in order to make it 2x squared? And the answer is 2x. 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 1 is 2x. Now I'm going to subtract down. Those will cancel out. That's negative 1x minus 2x is going to be negative 3x. Bring this negative 3 down. And then do the exact same thing again. See, the process itself just keeps repeating itself. I'm going to do the exact same thing I just did. What do I need to multiply x by in order to get to negative 3x? Or you can say, what is negative 3x divided by x? And the answer is negative 3. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. I'm going to subtract down, and what happens? there's no remainder. And so my answer is 2x minus 3. So if you got this wrong, please pause the video and redo this. Okay, example number 3. Again, the process is the exact same. I'm making sure this is in standard form. Now, I'm making sure this is in standard form, but be very careful. I have an x to the third, and I have an x. If there is no x to the squared term, you have to put one in there as a placeholder. Let me say that again a different way because this is extremely important. If you have an x to the third term, you have to have an x squared term as a placeholder. So you put 0 times x squared, which means 0. This whole thing is 0, but you have to have it there as a placeholder, and you will see why in just a moment. Now let me keep going. Now, if you forget to do that, don't worry about it, because while you're working out the problem, you will realize very quickly you forgot to do this, and then you'll have to just start over. But then go and double check, make sure it's in standard form. I have an x to the third, so I have to have an x squared term here as a placeholder with a coefficient of 0, and then I have an x to the first term. Now do exactly what you just did. I'm going to work it out, but if you want to try it yourself, then you can go ahead and hit pause and try it yourself. But I'm going to say, what do I need to multiply 3x by in order to make it 18x to the third? 6x squared times 3x is 18x to the third. 6x squared times negative 1 is negative 6x squared. And I'm going to subtract down. So you can see now why this placeholder was very important. Don't mess up on your subtraction. It's 0 minus negative 6x squared, which is going to be a positive 6x squared. Bring down the next term and then start your process again. What do I need to multiply 3x by in order to get 6x squared? 2x. 2x times 3x is 6x squared. 2x times negative 1 is negative 2x. Subtract down. Bring down the next term. What do I need to multiply 3x by in order to make it negative 6x? Negative 2 times 3x is negative 6x. Negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. Subtract down and you have no remainder, so this is your final answer. So when you're ready, if you need to rewind that and work that out again yourself, please do so. And then when you're ready, hit pause and work out these two on your own problems. And remember to put a placeholder there if needed. So for example, here it has x to the fourth, and then it jumps right to x squared. So you have to put a placeholder here for your x to the third term. You have to put a 0 times x to the third placeholder here. Otherwise, you won't be able to do this long division. It will be very difficult to do so. So go ahead and hit pause and work out these two on your own problems. Here's the answer to the first one. And here's the answer to the next one. Notice here at the end you have a remainder of negative 3. At this point you can stop. So this is going to be the numerator of your remainder. So your remainder is going to be negative 3 over x plus 3. So go ahead and attempt your homework, and if along the way you are really stuck and you need me to work out any of the problems for you, just send me an email. But I promise you, once you get the hang of this, this is actually fairly easy. This is actually one of the easier concepts in algebra to do because it's not very tricky. It's pretty straightforward.